This is episode 32 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 32 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Emma Pace on the show, and Emma is a realtor out of Toronto, Ontario. She is focused on condo sales. Today we have a great discussion about condo sales in the Toronto market, what's happening, what's coming down the pipe, some current Airbnb regulations that are under review, and she talks about her investment portfolio. She's got a handful of properties so far, and she hasn't really been at this game very long, but she's immediately dove into significant cash flow by buying wholesale deals. So Emma is pretty impressive. She didn't waste any time in getting going, and I was just doing some rough numbers, and she's already over $2,000 a month in cash flow off of a very, very young portfolio. Emma's an ambitious person, and she's certainly going to be making further strides. So she's definitely a person worth knowing. If you're not already, I'd recommend following her on Instagram. Her handle will be towards the end of this video. So without further ado, please enjoy the episode with Emma Pace. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Emma Pace on the show, and I know I said that right.
Yeah, you did. Absolutely you did.
So there we go. Emma, thank you very much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So it's really nice to finally connect. I know we talked a little bit on Instagram, and I know you have an interesting backstory, which I'll hear. I saw that you had been down to Oric. I saw some pictures. I'm like, who is Emma Pace? And anyway, so why don't you just tell your story, your little elevator pitch as to what you're doing in business and real estate investing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my main sort of day-to-day business is I'm a realtor with a company called Zoocasa downtown. Okay. So the brokerage is actually kind of like a hybrid of a tech company and a real estate brokerage. So I started there sort of with the takeover. It actually used to be owned by Rogers, and then it was taken over by our CEO and a couple of investors. And during that takeover, I transitioned as one of the first 5 agents with the company. Okay. And then basically from there, I started to really hone in on the condo market downtown because I found that I gelled with the sort of buyer profile, sort of young professionals, that kind of thing. And then I also wanted to figure out a way to ensure the longevity of my business. So I realized that most people who purchase condos say that they're going to stay for about 5 years, but the statistics actually show that they usually trade condos between every 2 to 3 years. So I was just trying to figure out a way that I could line my business up and always have that consistent cycle of repeat and referral business. Right. And then with that said, I didn't own my condo when I first got into real estate, and I'm the type of person where I want to be authentic to my clients. Right. And I just figured, okay, I need to figure out now, as being, I think it was 24, how do I buy a condo and how do I figure this out? So that was my first sort of endeavor into investing, which was actually a private deal that I purchased from a friend of mine and did an accidental BRRRR because I didn't know what BRRRR meant at the time. Yeah. So I ended up purchasing that condo and doing a program called Purchase Plus Improvements. Yeah. And then from there, I actually didn't purchase any other properties until last year, which was really when my real estate investing journey actually got started, which was a year ago, August 2018. And then since then, I've purchased a sort of student rental in London over near Fanshawe, which is a condo townhouse, a duplex in the Old East Village in London, and then a duplex in Christie Pitts in Toronto. Okay, so the Toronto duplex, what did that set you back? That one there actually was a wholesale deal through Luke Boyron. Okay, so shout out to Luke. Eventually he'll be on the show. Yeah, you definitely have to get him on the show. He's an amazing businessman, and I think networking obviously goes a long way because a lot of the deals that I've been able to purchase have been through networking with other people sort of in this, Southwestern Ontario sort of group, right? So Mike Rosehar, Adam Martin, which has since introduced me to Matt and Jeff and those guys, and then Luke through his regular meetups. And were those guys involved in the purchases you had in London? Yes. So Mike was involved in the first one, and I actually met Adam through Instagram, which connected me to the second one, and then Luke through the third one.
Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, so for some context as to how long you've been in real estate, and are you one of the top performers as far as condos go, or what's the? I know there was a line there. I just didn't know exactly what it was.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's, I believe, 70 agents now. And I'm one of the top 2 agents at Zoocasa. So I do the most volume in terms of transactions. And then we've got another agent who's more of like our luxury guy who does a lesser number of transactions, but we still tend to compete for gross commissions just because, he's smashing out the big $3 to $7 million deals where I'm just churning over smaller deals, but with more volume. Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing mainly condo sales in Toronto or other things as well?
I'm starting to transition a little bit to working more with investors. And now that I live in the Christie Pitts area, doing a little bit more in terms of the freehold, but I've been trying to build my team out. So I've got a client care coordinator who sort of helps with all of the paperwork on the back end with my clients. Yeah. And then a showing specialist who helps with all of my showings, which I intend on having take over the condo business and then focus more on the freehold side of things myself.
Focus on freeholds for your own buys or for your clients? Or
a mixture of both.
Mixture of both,
yeah.
Okay, now, so because you're from Toronto, there's sort of a unique opportunity that we can talk about what's hot in Toronto right now, what seems like a lucrative investment, what's an area of concern. Do you mind just enlightening me as to your take on what's going on in Toronto right now?
So why don't I give you some recent stats on where things are, and then we can sort of talk about why I think there's opportunities in certain sectors. So detached properties in the 416 are actually down 9.1% year over year right now. So the average purchase price for detached homes in Toronto last year was 1.35. Okay. This year it's 1.225. Okay.
Okay.
So do I think there's an opportunity there? I think with the rental trajectory has been increasing pretty significantly over the last year. So if you're able to acquire a multifamily at a lower cost than what you were able to last year, there are some cash flow opportunities there. Yeah. Okay. Condo townhouses and semis have both appreciated about 5%. So relatively average in the historical stats for Treb. And then condos have been at a very consistent upward trend, which is 8%. And that's one of the slower growth years that I've seen since I've been in real estate.
So 8% in the last year on condos.
Yeah.
How long have you been tracking this? Or how many years back are you kind of looking?
I've been in real estate for 5 years.
5 years. Okay. So over the 5 years, what's the average growth across the market that you've seen?
Over the last 5 years, it's been kind of skewed.
A little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, we've seen, I would say if I took the last 5 years, it's probably closer to 10, but I think that that's unsustainable growth and probably not healthy. It's obviously great when you're a homeowner and you're able to see that, but I also think that, most people who are homeowners have to move at some point in time, and it's, where are you going to go with numbers like that? So I still think that there's a tremendous opportunity for those who want to purchase condos. And it just goes back to, I guess, any sort of entry level position in the market where, condos are the most affordable, let's say, quote unquote, affordable opportunity for people to get into the market. So you have a lot of investors and you've got a lot of first time buyers. So the buyer pool is very healthy and very heavy down there, right? Yeah. So if you're able to purchase something at, below market value and do slight upgrades, there's some good opportunity there.
That's the tricky little factor there, below market value.
Yeah.
How is it that you buy something below market value in Toronto? How do you see people doing that?
I still think that there's a lot of opportunities on MLS because there are so many condos that trade. I still think that there are on market opportunities to do that because when you're dealing with a lot of first time buyers, they get sold on the staging. They get sold on the marketing. They want the perfect looking unit, right? And there are a lot of units on MLS that don't look perfect. They have no pictures. You walk in and they're tenanted and they look horrible and the sellers are willing to let them go at a discount, but you still have to deal with the headaches, right? So that's why I'm a huge proponent for my sellers. I always do the marketing. I always go to the sort of ends of the earth to make their property look picture perfect and present it as a product. But with my buyers that are comfortable with it, that have more of the investor mindset, then I'm always gearing them towards the things that don't look great online. And there's still deals to be had that way.
I like that you drew that out, because I know for myself, I've sold many a property because I was renovating them and I was tenanting them and then selling them to investors. And I always said that I loved selling to investors because they're not emotional. They don't look at the finish of the house and say, well, I don't like gray, I prefer brown. They don't say those kind of things. It's more like, do I like $600 a month in cash flow or don't I? And I guess there's two sides to that, because when you're only selling to investors, which is sort of what I was doing for quite some time, it does take some of the pool away, right?
Yeah,
Whereas
absolutely.
when you're selling condos in downtown Toronto, like you said, you've got international investors, you got first-time home buyers, you got professionals that work downtown that don't have families and don't even care to cook, and they're just in and out, and they want a place right down near where work is.
You also have a lot of people who work for international companies that have, decent jobs that can purchase a place where they just come to rest their head, kind of thing, right? So there's in quite a few different sort of buyer profiles that you can target when you're selling a condo.
Yeah, so as far as sales go, obviously there's tons of transactions. There's a huge demand. That's why condos are going up like crazy in Toronto. Do you know the stats on how many condo starts they have right now?
Number of transactions up 14% year over year.
So that's condo sales?
That's condo sales.
Okay.
Right now we're at just over 1,600 versus 1,400 last year.
So individual unit sales in Toronto proper?
In Toronto proper, yeah.
So for condo sales, those are resale or new construction sale?
Resale.
Okay, so, or would they all be lumped together?
Assignment sales would be lumped in that, but that would just be traditional trades on MLS, not purchased
Okay, so this is just on MLS. Of course, a lot of the larger developers don't sell on MLS.
Yeah, exactly.
So those would be outside of that. We're just talking. So condos are obviously a major demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Item. Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you think, and I loved how you put quote unquote when you said affordable.
Yes.
I think my number one gripe with condos is the condo fee and the complete lack of control over it.
Okay.
Second gripe would be the inability to control what your neighbors will vote for when electing people to positions within the condo corporation.
Sure.
And I've experienced it. One thing that particularly irks me is my wife owns a condo at, well, I'm not going to give the exact address, but it's, I almost did.
Do you want to share the unit number too? No,
maybe not quite yet. I don't even do that with my own properties, but basically in the Bathurst and King West area. And they have set an arbitrary limitation that 6 months is the minimum lease.
Sure.
Which, I mean, if you're trying to avoid Airbnb people, 1 month will do that.
Yeah.
Weekend partiers, like a second you say 1 month is minimum. So I just see it as being very irrational. Sometimes he's like, who came up with that and why? What was the logic? What are your takes on these things?
I also agree with you, but my thoughts are, regardless of your minimum rental stay, there's going to be people who are going to do Airbnb regardless. So I fully agree with you. I mean, it's just sort of like this arbitrary number that they just like, I don't know. We're just going to guess and say that 6 months will reduce Airbnbs. I don't necessarily think that, one way or the other, there's any sort of hard facts to prove whether or not that's true.
Yeah.
But I think my thoughts on condos for investors, I think we associate ourselves with a very young network of people who are strictly focused on cash flow. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of investors out there who want the safer option. They want the highest quality tenant profile. They don't care about the cash flow. They want to park their cash in something that requires very minimal maintenance. They don't want the Airbnb thing. They know that they're going to do year over year rentals, right? So I think that those are the people that should focus on condos, because we can provide AAA tenants almost all of the time. We can do our due diligence to ensure that we are purchasing in a condo that has a great reserve fund, and we can anticipate what their expenditures are going to be or the repairs are going to be for this year, the increase on their maintenance fees. So I think there's a very particular segment of people that condo investment properties actually work for.
Right, I agree.
But if you're looking for cash flow, it's probably not the number one place to look.
It's not your greatest place to look.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an interesting discussion to have, and I'd love to break down just what the cash flow would be, but I think you made a really good point there. I mean, I've talked to investors. I just had John Scholler on the show yesterday, and he was actually on the show a while back. And basically John said that, where he is, he can get cash flow, but their properties will not go up in value. He's from West Virginia.
Okay.
So they won't go up in value. Whereas, he wants to invest up here, but being American, that makes it hard for him.
Sure. Yeah.
Because he sees that, there's a lot of markets that don't cash flow, or maybe they're just going to make a little bit.
Yeah.
But the appreciation that we've been getting is insane.
Yeah.
And if that even it continues at a, 2 to 3% rate, that's still better than what he's seeing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. And I think that comes back to a question that I receive a lot, and that is my opinion on pre-construction.
Yeah.
And it's funny, being in the condo market, I'm actually not much in favor of investing in pre-construction, because my thoughts are, if we're investing solely for appreciation in a pre-construction market, that market and the resale market tend to move together.
Yes.
So my opinion is, why would we miss out on, even at a break-even point with a condo, why would we miss out on 5 years worth of principal pay down if the market's going to move in the same way, rather than just hope and pray that in 5 years my property appreciates at the same level?
I can give one counter argument to that.
And I'm absolutely open.
So I had Jazz on the show, I know we talked about this, but basically my thought is, okay, so if it is a 5-year horizon, which I think that's a little bit long for typical, maybe say 3 to 5 years, somewhere around that.
Sure.
The nice thing is, some people aren't in a position to qualify for a mortgage right now. So there's people dealing with permanent residency issues. They can buy into pre-co, and it kind of bridges the gap for them while they get all that stuff sorted. Mm-hmm. But then there's also if you get in early, and here's the big because by the time it hits the MLS, by the time the last 10% of the units hit the MLS, those are at premium pricing.
Yeah, totally.
The early stuff went to a handful of people that had connections to that developer. So I think in the most ideal scenarios, if you can get, and that's the you can get into that early on,
platinum access or whatever,
and buy at today's price for 4 years down the road. Now all of a sudden, 4 years down the road turns around, and now you have $200,000 in equity before you even take possession.
Qualify. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have anything on your credit bureau, and yes, you've had to fork out some down deposit money, but you haven't been experiencing any negative cash flow, which some people might. I would think, hopefully, if you do invest in that time frame, assuming Toronto continues, and that's another continues to do what it's been doing, you should be in a pretty good position of cash flow and equity position right off the get-go.
Yes. The only thing that concerns me, and that I've found with buyers that I've worked with in the past, is we're literally putting all of our trust in the fact that you're going to do everything that you need to do to be able to qualify before that closes.
Oh, yeah. That's a risky position.
So I think there's... Is there opportunity to make money? Without question. I fully agree with that, especially if the market moves the way that it's going to. But I think that we're leaving a lot of opportunity for someone to, call us. And for me as an agent, it's great if someone wants to call me and sell their condo before they actually close on it.
Sure.
But I wouldn't want to put my clients in any position where, if for some reason we're not able to sell it on assignment or whatever it is, that they're put in a more negative position. So I absolutely see both sides of it. Yep. I personally have just focused on the resale side of things, because I think that there's more pros to the resale than there are pros to the pre-construction.
And I wouldn't disagree with you. I think there are tons of pros to the resale market. I would say, just a caveat to what I had said before with, people who don't quite qualify yet, and maybe down the road they will. That type of strategy only makes sense if you can afford to close it in cash if it doesn't work out.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You got to be... Believe it or not, there is a way to invest in real estate taking almost no risk, like almost none. That would not be one of them.
Yeah. Totally.
But I mean, my profile as an investor is, I actually am fairly risk averse. Like I don't take much risk with anything I do.
Sure.
I have at one point in my life, and it burned me real bad.
Okay.
So on one hand, that's slowed me in a way, but it's also protected me and kept my investors' money safe.
Sure.
So there's many different benefits to being smart about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so
do you care to elaborate on what that was?
My getting burned?
Yeah.
So I've talked about this a couple of times, but basically one of the things that happened was I tried to develop a duplex in London. It was in an area that was very decrepit. Houses were sinking, old. It was historic, but historic poor, not historic character. Basically, it was a house with wonky floors, crawl space, not good construction type, saggy. And I decided that, this is the one. I was going to try and do it. I went in for planning and I was almost approved. I had gone in for site plan approval. And this is where they would basically tell me, yes, you can build this duplex. And this is how these are a couple of the little things we want you to do in the process. So I got to that point and then I'm like, site plan's pending. They told me I should have it within 2 weeks. And I went ahead and I called up the utilities. I called Union Gas, like the gas company and the electric company. And I said, let's get my demo permit going. So I started doing all the things for the demolition permit. Well, they snipped the line and the neighbors see, they're like, what's going on?
Oh, no.
The neighbors end up going to City Hall, seeing my plans, calling their local city councilor, calling the newspaper. I had 40 people on my front lawn saying, not in our backyard.
They all objected to it.
Yeah, they had a picture in front of my house standing on my property. And they were saying, not in my backyard. And I made the front page of the London Free Press at the time.
Wow.
That started an interim control bylaw. So the reaction was, I had the news stations calling me, wanting interviews, and I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to any of you. I was so angry that, they were acting like this. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter. This is happening anyway. Well, lesson, the neighborhood can always affect you. So don't ever assume that they can't. I basically I kind of ended up walking away with my tail between my legs, and it took 4 years for that property to recoup what I had into it before I was able to be sold. It was a really uncomfortable, not fun, humbling experience, which taught me a lot. And then the other one, these are, lessons of things not to do, but have taught me so much, is investing in Ohio when I lived in Burlington, being 6 hours away from my investments. And, I had a property manager I trusted. Yeah. And ultimately that was a mistake, and that cost me a lot of money as well, probably about 40 grand. Those are my lessons. Those are my tuition in real estate investing, we'll call it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone at some point is going to run into a little bit of a hurdle like that. Yeah. And but I think that it's your mindset that you're willing to adopt, which is going to determine how and or if you move forward.
And I was out of the game for a bit, and I will say that, having that property manager destroy my property and take my money, and he literally even collected my tenants' money and used it like for himself. Having all that happen, it made me so careful when I was now hiring people, and I would deal with trades, and I'd say, you know what, this is my policy because of things that have happened in the past. Sure. And I just kind of blamed it on the past. I've had this happen in the past, therefore this is how I do things. Yep. I don't pay deposits. That was one of the first things that came from that. No deposits whatsoever, ever. Milestones, maybe. Okay. Deposits now, like if I have like a trade that I've worked with for years, that's different.
Yeah, and you're comfortable with them.
So I might change the way I do things around that. But new relationships, yeah, good luck. Wow, yeah, I will not pay a deposit to a new relationship, and but I don't mind. I'm a very reasonable person. Like I'll meet people, I'll pay them milestones, I'll explain my position, and that's it's worked. Yeah. But if I hadn't gone through getting burned in Ohio, maybe I never would have made that adjustment and would have got burned bigger here. Yeah, absolutely. You never know, right? Sure. So it's funny how things happen, and I'm definitely an advocate of learn from my mistakes. Don't learn from making your own, but you will have to make some of your own anyway too. Yeah, so. I also think that's easier said than done. And you say, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, and then you come into this situation, you're like, okay, I did it. Well, as much as people could say learn from my mistakes, at the end of the day, I feel like people will still make a lot of them themselves. Now, hopefully you can avoid the bigger ones, or you have a couple little small mistakes that hurt enough in a small instance that you realize, oh, wow, good thing I didn't scale that. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, so we obviously got off on a little bit of a tangent about me, but I want to know about your investing. So sure. Why don't you tell me, I know you've obviously got the condo downtown. Is that your home? It was, and now I'm in Christie Pitts in the duplex there. Okay, so you're living on one side or I live upstairs, and then my JV partner actually lives on the main floor. So we sort of structured a hybrid model of purchase that through a wholesale, did it as a JV, was a duplex. We intend on adding another unit in the basement that we can actually Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So it's been sort of a plethora of all the different models that I've learned along my sort of journey. And then the condo downtown is currently an Airbnb that's actually located in a building that exclusively allows Airbnb. Okay. So that one's been extremely profitable.
the numbers on Airbnb, if we're talking about cash flow downtown Toronto, that's the one way to turn something that typically doesn't have much cash flow into a cash flow machine.
Tell me all about it. I'm going to pause you right there. And we're going to talk about Airbnb in Toronto right now. So we don't have the ability to fast forward in time and know what the decisions to the hearings this week are going to say. But can you just recap what the current issue, it's a bylaw that's currently in appeal.
Hey guys, let's just pause the episode for a second and hear from our sponsors.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Real Estate Growth Summit, hosted in Toronto, Ontario at the Pearson Convention Centre on November 11th and 12th. I have Dylan here to talk to you about the things that you're going to learn at the Real Estate Growth Summit. Dylan, take it away.
Thanks, Andrew. Really excited to be sponsors of your podcast. This event is for listeners like you that want to take your real estate sales or real estate investing business to the next level and to replace your active income with passive income through learning and implementing the systems and processes used by the best in the industry. Be prepared to walk away with some tangible tools and an action plan that I have personally used to become a top performer in the industry in just under 3 years. To get your tickets before prices go up, visit www.realestategrowthsummit.ca. And for being loyal listeners of Andrew's podcast, there's a special discount code just for you. All you have to do is enter Andrew REI as the promo code at checkout to save $50 off admission. The only way you're ever going to reach your massive goals is to take massive action. So go get your tickets today and we'll see you at the event.
Okay, let's get back to the episode.
Technically, we have the rules in place, but they are unenforced at this point. Okay.
Yeah. It's an appeal period, right?
Yeah.
So it's not enforceable right now.
Yes. So the intention for the rules going forward, which we'll, find out in a couple weeks for sure, would be the city intends to allow those who own condos to do short-term rentals if the property is someone's primary residence. So I could own the property, designate it as my primary residence, and be allowed to do short-term rentals, Airbnb, VRBO, that kind of thing. Or I could rent to you, Andrew, as my tenant, and it's your primary residence, and allow you to run short-term rentals out of my property based on the fact that it is designated as your primary residence. So it has to be someone's primary.
Okay, so that's a good clarification. I thought it had to be yours. So hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, this is irrelevant, and the whole motion got shot down.
Yeah, for sure. I do anticipate that, something will move ahead. But I have chatted with a few guys that run about 150 Airbnbs downtown, and they've been a part of this process over the last, I think this is the third time the appeal's been pushed back. And what they had indicated to me was each time it's been pushed back, things have been dropped off. So they had, the very first one was like, absolutely no Airbnb. No. And then they said, okay, well, that's not a feasible option for us.
Right.
What concessions are we willing to make to move this forward and to pass this? And then they weren't able to come to any sort of conclusion or agreement. And then the second one, they came back and said, okay, we'd be willing to do X, Y, and Z. And then there was pushback on it. No, that doesn't make sense. Okay, the final appeal is going to be this year in 2019. These are all the proposals. Let's pass something else. So I wouldn't be surprised if, one or two of the items that they're proposing maybe drops off. But I think their intention is to finalize something and have something complete.
Well, let's hope that it's not a conclusion that it has to be a primary residence, because that honestly is quite devastating to a lot of real estate investors. And obviously I'm thinking from the investor's standpoint. I like the idea of Toronto being able to be a destination where people can have their pick of where they stay. Somebody wants to visit Toronto can go, stay in a condo downtown. It bugs me a little bit when the government starts saying what a person can or can't do with their property. If they choose to rent it out to a stranger, I mean, the property owner is the one taking the risk there, not the government.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that just based on what's happening in the rental market downtown, I think Airbnb is a very easy scapegoat as sort of a, temporary Band-Aid fix to say this is the reason why we don't have the inventory, the rental inventory, right? So it's a very easy way in the media to say, okay, this is absolutely the reason why we don't have enough rental inventory, and we're at a 0.7% vacancy rate downtown, which is at a historical low. Like a healthy market is somewhere between 3 and 4%. We're at 0.7%.
Yeah.
We have essentially no rental inventory. But is Airbnb the reason for that? I don't think so. Should the government incentivize, smaller investors such as you and I to purchase condos, or developers to construct more purpose-built buildings?
Sure.
I think that's probably one way to,
Well,
increase that inventory a little bit.
how far down the rabbit hole do we want to go? I mean, I could blame HST for. I mean, HST is a very easy scapegoat. You look at a lot of flip properties per se. If
sure.
you over renovate a flip property, HST is now applicable.
Yeah.
Flipper's property is 100% gone, or their profit is 100% gone and in the negative because of HST. So the taxation alone, reductions in that on new construction or removal of HST from new construction units would open this market up.
For sure.
But, don't say that. Let's blame Airbnb.
Yeah. I
Again,
think
we could go on for days of why this is happening and government interference. And ultimately, it all comes back to these problems all really stem from government involvement in the first place.
Yeah.
But
yeah, totally.
Side conversation. We're playing the game here.
Yeah, exactly. But with that being said, we'll see what happens with these rules. However, if everything goes to the sways in the investor's favor, we can talk a little bit about what the numbers look like.
Yeah, I'd like to know what your numbers look like.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with your average monthly rent? Like, what kind of average gross income are you pulling in?
Let's talk about last month. $5,200 in gross.
Okay. So 1 month. Is that a fairly standard month?
Yes.
So winter, summer, doesn't matter?
That one there, I had $5,200 as my gross, and I had a week and a half blocked off. Okay. But I would say $5,200 would be relatively average. That was obviously August, but just, average month, $5,200 is probably
so
pretty
average month $5,200. Doesn't matter if it's December, January.
I would say my slowest months that I've seen would be November and February. I believe were my two slowest months.
Yeah, it makes sense. The holidays would be busy.
Yeah.
Okay, so $5,200 a month, and then you've got a condo fee on that. That bad
my
boy.
condo fee is $490.
$490. That's actually not bad.
Not bad,
to a
and
lot.
that includes all of my utilities except for hydro.
Okay, pretty standard agreement. So,
Yep.
So, and then what is your electric cost?
$65 to $70 a month.
$70 a month, and then you've got insurance on that, or no?
Yeah, $30 for insurance.
30. Yeah, it's just like a basic policy because the condo will have its own insurance.
Yeah, it's contents insurance essentially.
Yeah.
With a condo, you're basically getting the same thing that you would as a renter.
Right. Okay. So condo fee, electric, insurance, property tax.
Property tax would be somewhere in the ballpark of about $210.
What else am I missing here? You pay for internet
I'm paying
and
internet
TV?
there, which is $50 a month.
Internet and TV as well, or no?
No TV. I just have Netflix.
Really?
Netflix
and people
and
are
Crave?
cool with that on Airbnb?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. So you've just internet is 50.
Yep.
You had a good deal. What is it? Tech savvy or something?
No, it's Rogers. I don't know.
Oh, well, okay.
I think my fiance is just a better negotiator than I am.
Fair enough. Okay, so anything I'm missing? You've got some. You probably have to refresh soaps.
Yeah, I say
and
consumables maybe $80 a month.
$80 a month. So that give me an example of a couple of consumables.
Toilet paper, shampoo,
Yeah.
condiments.
Okay. Do you pay anyone to manage or clean?
I do have a cleaner that I pay every now and then sometimes we will do the flips ourselves and keep the cash for that.
Okay, so the $5,200, is that before your cleaning fee, or does that?
That is before my cleaning fee.
Okay, so what is your cleaning fee for a month? Would you say?
It would be $90. So I do $90 as my cleaning fee.
Yeah.
Okay. I do a minimum on my rentals of two nights with a maximum of 10. So I usually have somewhere in the ballpark of between 10, let's say on average 10 to 11 stays.
11 stays. Let's just say 11 stays times $90 then?
Yeah.
So 990 on cleaning. Does that sound right for a month?
Yeah, that's probably
That's
pretty
actually
fair.
your cost, reasonably?
So I pay my cleaner $75.
Okay, so we'll do that. We'll do 75.
But my gross cost, like my cost that I pass along, would be 90.
Yeah, that's
what I
nice. Hey,
charge.
you got to mark that up a bit. Okay, so in a month. Okay, so then the other thing is your mortgage payment.
Yep. Mortgage payment's about $1,900.
$1,900. And for context, what is this place? Is this a 1-bed plus den?
This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom with parking.
And in what area?
This is in Fort York.
support your
So Bathurst and Lakeshore.
Bathurst and Lakeshore. Okay. Yeah. So $1,545 left over at the end of that month.
Yeah, and
So
that's an average month.
That's an average month.
On the, in the summer, things tend to get a little juicier.
Yeah.
And then, in the winter, we might be closer to 11 or 1,200. But I think to get anything over $1,000 a month in cash flow from a condo downtown is
that's great.
pretty reasonable.
That's great. Yeah. How much of your time is that taking up to do?
I'd probably say we spend maybe 2 to 3 hours a week on it.
2 to 3 hours a week. Okay. But if you didn't do any of the cleaning at all, then it would be
Maybe an hour.
maybe it'd be an hour a week, so 4 hours a month.
Mhm.
That's really not bad. I mean, for your time, I guess if we divided that by 4,
Yeah.
because technically I've factored enough here that you could pay to have it cleaned every time.
Yeah.
That's about $386 an hour for your time that you're making there.
It's not bad.
Yeah, so I don't know if you watched the episode or heard it. I had Sammy Kahn on.
Yeah,
way back when
the gent
Airbnb
from
guy
Montreal, right?
from Ottawa.
Sorry,
Ottawa
yeah.
likes to sublet Airbnbs.
Yes.
And I've heard that there are other people that do this. Actually, I just randomly stumbled across a Grant Cardone podcast yesterday that the guy was doing the same thing.
Re-rental strategy, right?
Re-rental strategy,
Yeah.
and he was saying that, like, if your normal rent would be $1,500 in the U.S. markets, you should be able to get $4,500 on Airbnb. Like, if your standard rent is $1,500, do you think that would translate in Toronto? Like, what is the normal monthly rent for your place there?
Probably 2,700 to 2,800. So I think that you're looking
Yeah.
at probably double.
So more of a double versus 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's, I think a lot of people like to toss out large numbers because that 4,500 might be his
Sales pitch.
one of his largest months.
Yeah.
So I could easily say, okay, yeah, months we've had 6,500 or 7,500, but I
Yeah.
would say to be conservative and to be average 5,200 would be
Yeah.
common.
Not bad. Now, I guess, so would you cash flow? Have you worked the numbers out if you just rented it out on a regular
I would cash flow like $50 a month.
$50?
So
yeah.
my sort of interim strategy would be more of a corporate stay. So there's a website called Rent It Furnished.
Yep.
And, on there, I would probably get for somewhere between a 3 to 6 month rental, 3,800 to 4,000, right? So it's, do I want to take that temporary hit for a longer period in terms of a stay? But then I also fall under the LTB rules, which I think is one of the biggest benefits of Airbnb.
Yeah, well, you're saying not falling under LTV. Yeah, so the benefit is not, the disadvantages would be paying HST or charging it and remitting it, and then of course if the city says you can't do this anymore,
Then that's where.
so what will you
do?
do depending on if that turns out not in our favor here?
I will either partner with someone who will designate it as their primary residence and find some sort of opportunity to do it that way. And I will play within the rules 100%. I do believe in playing within the rules.
Yeah.
Or I change my strategy to a corporate stay, which is fine. I'm still in a cash flow positive position every month, and I still get to keep my condo downtown.
Yeah, and you've already got it furnished.
It's furnished. It's ready to go. So I think, if the government, changes the rules, it's not going to deter me or force me to sell my property.
Yeah.
It's just going to make me readjust my strategy and figure out a way to continue to make it profitable.
Just need to know the rules well.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's move into one of your London properties, because
Sure.
you moved to London as far as your investing goes for the next
so I'm originally from London.
You're originally
born and raised in London, and then I moved to Toronto because I was DJing, which we were talking about earlier. So I DJ'd for like 10 years, and then that brought me to Toronto because we were playing quite a few gigs.
Yeah.
And I was working full time, and I didn't have enough time to DJ and work full time. So I thought that real estate would be an excellent opportunity for me to work for myself and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm not DJing and I'm working full time in real estate because I truly did find that it was my passion, and it's what I actually want to do for the rest of my life. Whereas I don't think I want to be a 50-year-old DJ.
Okay, so you gave up the music dream, similar to maybe to me in a little way. I used to play gigs, the Horseshoe, Rivoli,
Oh, okay, cool.
Hard Rock.
Nice.
I played all that stuff with my band, and eventually I think people, it wasn't me per se, but yeah, the rest of the band sort of kids and marriage. And eventually then I got busy with what I'm doing. And
I think it's an amazing creative outlet, but I think that, I don't know, at the end of the day, it wasn't something that I could foresee myself doing in the long term, even though I was super passionate about it and everything was going very well with that career. It wasn't something that, when I was 22 and I was DJing, I could foresee myself doing at 40. Okay. Whereas when I got into real estate, I was like, I can't foresee my life without doing this.
Yeah. I find real estate fun too. It's surprising to me that I never did did go down to the road of becoming a realtor, just because I do enjoy talking about real estate all day long. But I think that talking about it from an investor standpoint probably suits me a bit better.
I also think that there's this sort of like sexiness on the outside of what it looks like to be a realtor. Around. But it's, as a realtor, you're more of a salesperson / if you're a realtor who just does intend to grow their business, it's, how do you grow a sales business? With the product being real estate. So you need to be passionate about the product, but you also need to be a salesperson and a business person versus just someone who just stares at, who looks at the numbers and is going through the renovation process and stuff like that. So it's a very different.
Oh, I agree.
It's a very different, sub industry in itself in real estate.
I know quite a few realtors and I've had kind of an inside look through the many years, and I, having been an active mortgage agent that built my own business, I went through the same thing. I think that I just skipped some of the running around because in the mortgage business you can work from home and just write the deals, but in real estate you're running around showing people into houses, and obviously there's something that goes with that. I do actually love seeing houses. Yeah. And, like a day spent seeing like 10 houses and visualizing what I would do and talking about how much money I could make off of that. Like that's like, a kid at Disney World.
Yeah. But it absolutely can be amazing. And I think there's far more pros than there are cons, especially for me being in sales for a lot of my life as well. That I really, really enjoy, and I love the realtor portion of the business. But I also very much like stepping aside and putting on the proper investor hat and doing those projects. Sure. That's super exciting to me.
Absolutely. So why don't we focus on that for a second? Yeah. So the London deals, what was the first London deal you bought?
The first London deal that I purchased was a condo townhouse near Fanshawe.
Okay. So student rental?
That one's a student rental. Right now, we actually have a family that's in there.
Okay.
So why don't I tell you about what the property is now and then what the goal is when we do the renovation for it. So we purchased that property. This was an MLS deal. Mm-hmm. Purchased the property for $160,000.
When?
Last August. Or sorry, it would have been last July, closed in August. Okay. Gross rents for that property are $1,650. So it was 1% rule all day long, just slightly above.
Just right off the bat. Okay.
Yep.
But you have condo fee there.
I have a condo fee there. It's quite low though. So the way that I looked at it was this. My condo fee is $192 a month there. So very reasonable. That handles all of my exterior maintenance. So windows, roof, that kind of thing. All of my groundskeeping. And my insurance goes from 110 or whatever it would be to about 30.
Save the money right there.
I'm able to compensate for about 50% of the maintenance fees by it actually being a condo and not having to worry about any of the exterior maintenance.
Yeah, I get a deal and I'm paying like $100 a month for my landscaping. And my properties.
Yeah. So with the duplex, I pay $95 or whatever, right? So the way that I see it is, okay, well, if I get my roof and my windows covered and my landscaping and my insurance goes down, it's not horrible. Yeah. For $192.
Okay, so what's your cash flow on that one?
That one at $1,650 is about $425. So it's not the juiciest in terms of cash flow.
You bought it for $160.
Yeah.
And no renos?
Sorry. We didn't do any renovations, just painting.
That's a slam dunk all day long.
That was a great deal. But the intention for that property, so it's a 3-bed, 1.5 bath with a partially finished basement. Okay. The intention for that is to add another full bathroom, separate another room in the basement, and separate the living room is massive. So put a small bedroom and basically cut the living room in half so that we can
add
do
some bedrooms.
5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. So the gross rents would probably be somewhere between 25 and 2,700, and then we do the sort of student rental thing for 5 to 550 a bedroom.
Wow, if you got that, you'd be cash flowing over $1,000.
Yeah, the target cash flow will be somewhere in the ballpark of about 1,100
off of an asset you can acquire for under 200 grand. That's killing it.
Yeah, no, it's that one's a great deal. It's just a matter of waiting a little bit and having to work with the condo corp to ensure that we can, get the egress windows cut in, because it isn't something that you can just make an executive decision on. There are some processes that you have to go through. However, the deal was so good that I'm willing to do those things.
Pro tip: friend of mine, him and his 2 other buddies in a condo community of about 40 units got on the condo board. And they got themselves elected, and then they just passed the rule that you could cut in egress windows as long as you used an approved contractor.
See, I think that have you heard about the 3 guys who sat on all those condo boards in Toronto?
No.
So what they were doing was illegal. However, it was extremely intelligent. So what these guys did was they went and they applied all 3 together for multiple condo boards, and you didn't have to live in the building to apply for these condo
elected
boards. Yes.
Oh,
so
cool.
They got themselves elected to all of these condo boards, and they owned, I think it was like a window cleaning company. They owned just like a generic cleaning company. So what they would do is they would sit on all these boards, and then they would vote their own companies in for these large contracts.
Yeah, that's borderline unethical.
Yeah, so it was super unethical, but it was also incredibly intelligent and very entrepreneurial.
Hey, if the rules allow for it, until they pass a rule that doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was funny. I was reading about that. I was like, oh, these guys are hilarious. So yes, if you can sit on the condo board, at least you do get your vote for the things that you want, and it's not a bad idea.
So you're at 400 and change right now in cash flow. Does that factor in something for maintenance? On the inside?
That would include, again, that's my mortgage, management at 8%.
Okay. You pay a manager.
Pay a manager for that.
Okay.
Which I probably didn't really need to, but at the end of the day, I'm still cash flowing, and it gives me the peace of mind that I don't have to deal with that.
Not bad.
So
not bad at all.
That was fine. About $100 a month, I still put aside for maintenance.
Good idea.
My maintenance fees, my insurance, and that's pretty much everything.
That's awesome.
So I factored it all in.
That's solid cash flow. Now, would that deal still be attainable today?
No. So the market's appreciated pretty significantly. Yeah. And so with London, what I actually find, especially dealing with a lot of my friends who are in the first-time buyer category, many people didn't want to purchase semi-detached condo townhouses. They only want detached properties. So as the market was appreciating pretty significantly last year, there was, I think, an opportunity in this condo townhouse sector where people were sort of overlooking it. And now, because of the purchase price in London being above 400,000, people are starting to be open to alternative styles of deals. So I would say that 160 in literally 1 year is probably 230.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it's been very fruitful from an appreciation perspective as well.
Well, there's there's a lesson to be learned there, and this is not a pattern that's exclusive to London. This is any city, anywhere. The first properties to go up most likely are going to be your single detached, following your condos, your condo townhouses, like basically just in order of desirability. So the first one explodes, and the others take time. The same thing goes with construction. When construction costs go up, it takes time for housing prices on resale to go up, right? People have to realize, hey, wait a minute, these new houses are getting more and more expensive. I'm going to go buy a used one.
A little bit of a trailing sort of lag on that,
And then there's the trailing of rents. So if you understand that the rents have to catch up, or if you just went through a big housing boom, but rents haven't caught up yet, and you're at break-even cash flow, then there's a good chance, if the pattern continues, that your rents are going to be going up in the next couple of years.
And that's also sort of been a position that I've had with investor clients in the condo market downtown, is it's if the rental prices continue on the same trend that they are now, if we're able to purchase you a condo that's break even this year, as long as we can sort of stay on that same path, you should be in a relatively decent cash flow position after the first turnover of tenant.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that an investor needs to have their mind open to.
Yeah.
Not saying that everyone's going to do that, but if you're not super like, I need cash flow right now anyway,
Yeah.
and you can wait it out. I've just seen it across all my properties. I've seen rents going up. They do go up. It does take time. Students are a funny little animal. Like, I never really know what's too much to ask, and I also don't know, what's normal.
Yeah.
I just ask.
No, for sure. And I think that the funny thing with students is, I don't know, I feel like if they have a good relationship with you, they're just like, okay, you're a good guy. I feel like you're going to take care of me. I'm willing to pay you $25 a month more than the next guy, right? I feel like there is some decent room for negotiation with that.
I think what I always thought in my head was, well, if parents are paying for it, I mean, their kid's place, if they had set aside, $600 and then it ends up being $700, most parents are just going to be like, what's $100?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas it gets a little bit different, if you're talking about buying a house and it's, $20,000 more or whatever, like it's not a big number for the parent. Yeah. So that's why I like it, because, I don't really have 6 kids occupying my house. I have 6 kids living in it, and their parents are paying the rent.
Yeah. The other thing too is that, you have to position your product in a way that, you can sell to the parents. So if you're willing to offer something for $700 a month and everybody else is at $550, but you can sell the fact that you do all of these things that are it's going to give them peace of mind
or
for
just
their
make
kids.
it nicer.
Yeah, it's literally a no-brainer to them.
Oh yeah, like so safety equipment, like making sure basements have big windows. These are things that I thought about. I'm like, well, who's going to come through here? Good chance the parents are going to want to come through and see it before the kid signs a lease.
Totally.
Sometimes they don't. Actually, a lot of times they don't, but they'll have their kid take pictures and show and say, oh, do they have smoke detectors downstairs?
For sure.
Yeah, being able to say, oh, it's brand new or it's newly renovated, those things help.
Yeah, 100%.
What about your next property? So that one worked out well.
The next property was just funny backstory on it. I actually saw Adam Martin post a Instagram video saying, hey, I'm in Toronto. I don't know anyone. If anyone wants to meet me for a beer, send me a message. Yeah. And I was like, honestly, I'm just going to send this guy a message. He looks kind of like a cool guy. Yeah. What's the worst that can happen kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I sent him a message, and then he sends me a video message back saying, hey, you know what? Sorry, I posted that earlier. I'm actually on my way back to London. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Hopefully I can meet you next time I'm in Toronto. Yeah. So I start telling him, and he goes, oh, yeah, you invest in London. Do you happen to know anybody who'd be looking for a duplex in the Old East Village? And I was like, I might. And this was 6 weeks after I had just closed on the other one. Okay. And so my fiance is like, we're not purchasing another house. We literally just closed on this one. So I told Adam to send me the numbers, and I drove back to London the week after to go look at the property. And it happened to be one that I had been looking for a while. So it wasn't an up and down duplex. It's actually front and back. So each of the units have their own separate basement for storage. There's a sub panel on the second one. So it's 3 beds, 3 bed, 1 bath with an unfinished basement, like large unfinished basement in the front. And then there was an addition on the back for a 1 bedroom unit that we converted to a 1 bedroom plus den.
Okay, so it's 2 units, but you're using it as 3, or
no. Sorry, it's 2 units.
Okay,
so
just 2.
The first, like the front unit is a 3 bedroom.
Yeah.
Then the back unit was a 1 bedroom, which was occupied by this like professional tenant who smoked, and so we put that one into contract. I want to say September 2018, and I closed March 2019 because I was able to negotiate with the seller that I wanted vacant possession of that unit, and he agreed to it. So we worked together through the process to get her out of there, but it was a lengthy process, and she hadn't been paying since April of 2018.
Oh, so she was due to be evicted anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So that place needed, I mean, she had smoked in there. It wasn't in terrible shape, and he had actually just renovated the front unit, so I didn't have to do any work on the front unit, which was amazing. The back unit needed a light rehab, but there was this sort of underutilized portion of the basement. So the basement in that one's actually finished. The kitchen is down there. It's a little bit of a weird layout, but it works. But there was this utility room where the furnace and the laundry was, and it was a decent size. Like I would say it's probably 3/4 of this room that we're sitting in here right now. And we just kept thinking, this adds probably somewhere in the ballpark of 20% additional square footage that could be utilized. So we end up converting that into a finished space that's now a den that I think the tenant's using more so as an office, and we added sliding doors with laundry and whatever. So it, we were able to add 20% more square footage, and then the actual rents from that one, she was paying, I think like $650, and we're at $1,025 plus utilities now.
You pushed up your rents. What are your total rents on the building?
$26.50.
$26.50. That's good.
And I acquired that one at $252.
$252.
Or $253. Acquired the property at $250, and there was a $3,000 wholesale fee to Adam.
Okay, yeah. So shout out to Adam for wholesaling properties.
Yeah, I love you, Adam. Thank you. Thanks for that property.
He had a good episode on this show too, and telling his story.
I listened to his was great, and also I just very much respect that whole crew. But I think that what Adam's been able to accomplish in probably the last year and a half is incredible, and everyone should review his story and just have the work ethic that he does, and you can accomplish anything really. Yeah,
just really immersed himself in it. So $26.50 is your rent there. Yep. Do you know what your cash flow is offhand?
That one's about $850.
And that's managed as well?
That one's managed as well with the 8% management fee.
And you still set aside $100 a month for maintenance?
Yep. That one, we've got the grass cutting and snow removal and stuff like that. Yeah, so you got to
pay for that too,
But yeah, they pay their own utilities. I think my insurance there is $105 or $110 a month. Property tax is probably in the ballpark of $190 to $200 a month. The mortgage is about $1,000.
So you're doing pretty well with your first few properties. Like you're cash flowing quite well.
Yeah.
Quite quickly.
Yeah, no, it's been they've been fruitful so far. And don't get me wrong, have I run into issues that have set me back slightly on those months? Yeah. For sure, right?
Yeah.
But going back to the whole mindset thing, you get super excited as an investor, and you think like, I'm banking on this $450 and this $850 every single month, and it's you just need to be prepared that out of the year there's going to be a couple months where that gets chewed up pretty quickly over the small items. So don't get discouraged during those months, because it is very easy to let your emotions take over and say like, this was a bad idea. Stay the course. Don't get frustrated. Everything will work out in the long term.
I budgeted 5%. I typically look at 5% on my student rentals for maintenance. And you know what? Sometimes I don't get anything. And then sometimes it really hurts.
For sure.
I had my furnace. I wasn't checking on this property over the summer. There was a kid living there, but he wasn't living in the basement. Furnace, the condensate was not dripping through the pipe and into the drain. It was dripping out of the side of the furnace onto the floor.
Oh no!
Flooded the whole side of the basement.
Oh no!
And this is the second time in a year time inside of 12 months that I've had to pull the floor out, pull the trim off.
Oh no!
And luckily it's waterproof floor, but it has to be cleaned because it's been sitting there in water for 3 months.
Oh, for sure.
And these things happen, but you got to realize it's part of the game, and you have to set money aside for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just you can't get shiny object syndrome and just assume that everything is perfect. Even in a brand new build, your tenants can do something that can set you back a little bit. So just be prepared for those items, because they will happen. But again, this isn't a short-term game. If you're going to be a real estate investor and you want to do it proper, focus on the long term.
Well, you're doing a nice job so far. So
thank you.
To you.
I appreciate it.
What's next for you?
The Christie Pitts property is something that needs to get finished. So I'm living in that one now. My goal was to utilize that one as what I call the Toronto version of a house hack. So my goal is to not completely eliminate my living expenses, but to reduce my living expenses to about the average of what it would cost me to live in a small 500 square foot 1-bedroom condo. But I've got 3 bedrooms and a bathroom and outdoor space and stuff like that. So that's my compromise in Toronto.
Okay.
And then from there, I think my next real plan of action is I want to do the vacation rental, so I can get a cottage that I can use for myself temporarily. But I also, again, I'm a big proponent of Airbnb and that kind of thing. So I think that is probably my next step.
Yeah, when you have vacancy, you can go up and check on your property for 3 nights.
Yeah. So that's, I don't know. I think that, oftentimes we purchase these properties and stuff and we don't have the opportunity to utilize what we're investing in. And I find that that's a good hybrid theory. And Luke and Jess have, I think, acquired maybe 4 or so vacation rentals since they made their first presentation, which was probably like 7 or 8 months ago at their meetup. Okay. And they've been extremely lucrative and profitable for them. So I think it's a good way to be able to enjoy your investment a little bit, but still make a decent return.
So Luke's got a meetup in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
I've never been.
Oh, you have to go.
No, where does he host it?
Black Lab Brewery. So it's actually, just even a side note on just the brewery itself, it's pretty cool because you can bring your dog there.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so you can bring your dog there and have beers. I actually find a lot of breweries in Toronto you can, which is pretty cool. But his meetup's great. They usually do about a half an hour presentation for some sort of investor strategy. Luke will go over a deal or so that he's done in the last month, and then a lot of networking.
Yeah, there's a lot of good meetups going on right now, and one of my resolutions to myself is I'm going to start getting out to a lot more of them, because I started mine and that was all I was really going to, and then the Right Club is here in town. But there's the stuff happening in Toronto, there's the stuff happening in London, and there really is no excuse for me not to be there, because it's such a growth thing. Going to these meetups is such a huge growth thing, and so many tips, tricks, strategies, ideas come out of them, and then before you know it, boom, that just made me a bunch of money.
Absolutely. And I think for me too, it was doing this sort of uncomfortable networking has led me to purchase all of the properties that I have in the last year. And the most important thing was that it led me to actually take action, because I had wanted to do it for so long. And then you start to really involve yourself with people who are doing it, and you're like, okay, I have to pull the trigger.
Beautiful. So Jenna, what would be the best way if people wanted to reach out to you and learn more about you, what you do, maybe talk to you about some real estate? What would be the best way?
Instagram's probably the easiest way to reach me. So it's Pace of Base, or you can reach me at by email, which is emma.pace@zoocasa.com.
Pace of Base.
Pace of Base, yes.
Ace of Base?
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate that handle. Very cool one. Okay. Well, anyways, I really appreciate you coming on,
and
hopefully people will take a look at what you're doing and take something from this interview, because you're off to a great start.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. Just a quick reminder to please rate and review this podcast if you have not already done so. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment and click that subscribe button, give it a like, leave me a comment. It just helps more people to find the podcast, helps it grow. I also wanted to remind you about the Greater Hamilton REI meetup. As of the date I'm recording this, our next event is on Wednesday, September 25th at 7 p.m. If you're not already in the private group and on the event, please reach out to me on Instagram or on Facebook at the Andrew Hines, and I'll make sure that you get the invite and get into the group.